Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Preet Bharara, and I'm the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Over 3 years ago, many of us gathered in this same building to announce and celebrate the return of two great paintings, one by Roy Lichtenstein and another by Joaquin Torres Garcia to Brazil. Those masterpieces, along with other valuable works of art, had been illegally smuggled into the United States by convicted Brazilian banker and fraudster Edmar Cid Ferreira as a way to launder and hide the proceeds of a billion-dollar bank fraud. We seized, forfeited, and returned both those paintings to Brazil so that the proceeds from their sales could be used to help the victims of Ferreira's fraud. It is with great pleasure that I announce today the return of a third painting, this one by Serge Polyakov, called Abstract Composition, worth about $500,000, which you see displayed to my left. The story, by way of background, the story begins with Ferreira, the founder and president of Banco Santos, one of the largest banks in all of Brazil. While maintaining the facade of a legitimate business, Ferreira was actually orchestrating a massive fraud and converting his ill-gotten gains into one of Brazil's foremost private art collections that included the painting that you see here today. In 2006, the law finally caught up with him, and Ferreira was convicted in a Brazilian court for his massive fraud and money laundering scheme. Ferreira received a 21-year prison sentence, and Banco Santos sank into bankruptcy, leaving more than $1 billion in debt. To elude the seizure and forfeiture of his ill-gotten art collection, Ferreira arranged to smuggle many pieces to other parts of the world. This Polyakov, for example, was shipped from Brazil to the Netherlands and then to the United States and ultimately to Switzerland. Because the Polyakov and other works of art had already been placed on an Interpol watch list and was the subject of a Brazilian seizure order, Ferreira and his cohorts took care to ship them in containers with false labels and invoices, misdescribing and grossly undervaluing their contents. Those efforts were ultimately in vain. Through the extraordinary work of our partners at HSI and the cooperation of authorities in Brazil, Switzerland, and elsewhere, this painting was identified and seized. And then my office successfully pursued a civil forfeiture action in a U.S. court, leading to today's result, the return of the painting to Brazil and its custody for the benefit of the victims of Ferreira's fraud. Today's repatriation is, by the way, just the latest in a long line of cases where we have been able to return smuggled and stolen art and antiquities to the nations where they rightfully belong. As I mentioned earlier, over 3 years ago, we seized and returned paintings by Roy Lichtenstein and Torres Garcia to Brazil that had been illegally smuggled out of Brazil by Ferreira. In September of 2011, we returned to Poland two oil paintings that had been stolen from the Polish National Museum by Nazis during World War II. In May of last year, we returned to the government of Mongolia a Tyrannosaurus Batar skeleton worth at least $1 million that had been looted from the Gobi Desert. And in July of last year, we returned to the National Library of Sweden two priceless antique books that had been stolen from the Swedish Royal Collection. And just 2 days ago, Special Agent in Charge Hayes, who was here, and I were commemorating the return of a stolen 10th century Cambodian sandstone sculpture to the Kingdom of Cambodia. It is our view that art and antiquities have special value and meaning that cannot readily be quantified. As a result, they have long been the subject of theft and deception, as well as a means to launder illicit proceeds, as happened in this case. Art should serve to inspire the mind and nourish the soul, and not be allowed to become a conduit for crime. So before I hand the podium off, I want to welcome today our distinguished guests from Brazil. We are joined here by, among others, Paulo Abreu Perez Jr., National Secretary of Justice, Ambassador Ana Lucy Gentle Cabral Peterson, head of the Consulate of Brazil in New York, along with a number of other Brazilian officials. I want to thank you for working with us on this case, and we are honored to have you with us here today. I also want to thank, of course, our partner, Homeland Security Investigations, and this and so many other repatriation cases for its excellent and hard work in this investigation. I am joined today, as I often am, by Special Agent in Charge Jim Hayes, and would like to thank him and the HSI agents who have been working on this case for such a long time: Special Agent Brendan Lunt, former Senior Special Agent Seth Taylor, and Resident Agent in Charge in New Haven, Walter Wilkowski. I would also like to thank the Office of International Affairs of the Department of Justice, specifically the Associate Director for South America, Magdalena Boynton, for her assistance. And finally, I must thank the prosecutors from my office who worked tirelessly on this case to get the great result that we celebrate here today. Assistant U.S. Attorneys Jason Hernandez and Alexander Wilson, as well as Sharon Cohen-Levin, the Chief of our Money Laundering and Asset Forfeiture Unit. And now I want to turn the podium over to Special Agent in Charge, Jim Hayes.
Thank you, Preet, and thank you once again for hosting this event here today. I'm very happy to be here on behalf of ICE and Homeland Security Investigations and standing in for my counterpart in Boston, Bruce Folkart, whose office led this investigation throughout the world with 48 attaché offices. That's offices in 48 countries around the world. We worked very closely with Interpol to track down all of these pieces that were illicitly obtained through more than a half dozen countries around the world. We were responsible for, along with federal prosecutors here in the Southern District of New York and a number of courts around the world, the seizure of more than 1,000 pieces of artwork associated with the aforementioned billion-dollar fraud and money laundering case against Edmar Cid Ferreira, a corrupt and wealthy banker who has been convicted and sentenced in his native country of Brazil. HSI special agents around the world work tenaciously, along with our international law enforcement partners, to locate, detain, and seize the works of art, which were spread out across Switzerland, France, the United Kingdom, and here in the United States. In the case of this painting, HSI special agents working alongside the prosecutors and investigators here at the Southern District of New York found this item in Switzerland, and worked very closely with Swiss authorities and U.S. courts to be able to obtain a seizure warrant and ultimately bring the painting here to the United States so that we could in turn hand it over to the place it belongs to, the people of Brazil. Now, in many of these cases, the painting is the actual centerpiece of the crime. In this case, it's a lot like what drug traffickers do through the black market peso exchange, whereby committing a fraud and a money laundering scheme and trying to use these pieces of art to actually clean those funds and in some cases enrich themselves even further. In the case of stolen and looted art and antiquities, Homeland Security Investigations plays a leading role in this effort to return these pieces, and since 2003, we have returned more than 7,100 pieces of stolen art and antiquities. I as well would like to take the time to thank a few people, in particular the HSI Special Agent in Charge Boston office and Special Agents Brendan Lunt and Jeff Farragher, who led this investigation from the New Haven, Connecticut Resident Agent in Charge office, and of course the Assistant U.S. Attorneys here, Alexander Wilson, Jason Hernandez, and Sharon Cohen-Levin of the Southern District of New York, as well as the United States Attorney here, Preet Bharara, with whom, as he mentioned, we do so much tremendous good work. Also want to thank the Secretary of Justice, the Madam Consulate here from Brazil, and all of the Brazilian members of the law enforcement community who consistently lend an incredible amount of expertise to our investigations. And I also want to mention that Cheryl Bassett, the ICE Homeland Security Investigations Attaché for Brazil and Bolivia, who is here today, and contributed a tremendous amount of expertise and effort to this investigation and to what we're doing here today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jim. And now it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Paulo Abreu Perez, Jr., National Secretary of Justice from Brazil.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Mr. Preet Bharara, Mr. James Hayes, Dr. Eronides Santos, Senhora Embaixadora Ana Cabral. I speak in Portuguese, and then she will translate for you. It's better for you. Não tenho dúvidas sobre como a criminalidade, hoje em dia, transpôs todas as fronteiras. Os casos criminais que ocorrem em mais de uma jurisdição, bem como produzem seus efeitos em mais de uma jurisdição, são inúmeros, desde os delitos mais simples até os mais complexos, tal como o suborno de funcionários públicos, os crimes financeiros e a lavagem de dinheiro.
There is no doubt about how criminality nowadays has crossed all borders. The criminal cases which occur in more than one jurisdiction, as well as producing effect in more than one jurisdiction, are uncountable. From the most simple crimes to the most complex, such as bribery of foreign officials, financial crimes, and money laundering.
Se existe tamanha facilidade para transpor fronteiras do crime, os órgãos de aplicação da lei devem, a todo custo, cruzar esses limites territoriais também e exercer uma justiça de caráter transnacional. Neste sentido, nada mais valioso que as experiências e possibilidades que a cooperação jurídica internacional nos abre. E a comunidade internacional percebe isso. Basta observarmos a quantidade de tratados bilaterais e multilaterais que hoje versam sobre esse tema, criando realmente um ambiente de aproximação dos países no que tange a questões bilaterais.
If it is so easy for crime to cross borders, then law enforcement agencies must, at all costs, cross these territorial limits as well and exercise transnational justice. In this sense, there is nothing more valuable than the experiences and possibilities brought about by international legal cooperation. And the international community has taken note that just by looking at the number of treaties, both bilateral and multilateral, that address this topic, they are creating an environment where the two countries can come together over these legal matters.
A repressão aos crimes financeiros se insere nesse mesmo contexto. Em um mundo que se recupera de uma crise financeira e econômica, todos os países devem ser, não menos que implacáveis nesse combate, agindo preventivamente, com transparência, desenvolvendo técnicas avançadas de investigação e coordenação entre as autoridades, de modo a tornar a persecução dos crimes financeiros cada vez mais eficiente e, consequentemente, coibindo essas práticas delitivas.
The suppression of financial crimes operates in the same context. As we face a post-economic, an era of recovery after the world economic crisis, all countries must be nothing less than relentless in combating financial crimes, acting proactively and transparently, and developing advanced investigative techniques and coordinating among authorities, thus leading to an increasingly efficient prosecution of financial crimes and hence jeopardizing illicit activities.
Muito rapidamente, cabe mencionar a Estratégia Brasileira de Combate à Corrupção e à Lavagem de Dinheiro, que completou, nesse ano passado, 10 anos. Uma das suas conquistas principais está na recente lei que responsabiliza civilmente as pessoas jurídicas por práticas corruptas, que entrou em vigor neste ano. Temos trabalhado com ainda mais afinco na criação de órgão encarregado na administração de bens submetidos a medidas assecuratórias. Isso tudo, de certa forma, auxilia na proteção do sistema financeiro e das pessoas.
In a nutshell, it is fitting to mention that our national strategy to combat corruption and money laundering, which will have been in existence now for 10 years, it is a new act which is bringing civil liability upon companies for corrupt practices. We have been working with even more intensity toward the creation of an assets forfeiture unit. All of this, in certain respects, helps to protect both the financial system and individuals.
A recuperação de ativos, portanto, pode ser vista como um ponto de intercepção e de encontro entre o combate aos crimes financeiros e a cooperação jurídica internacional. É incrível como que podemos dar efetividade em jurisdição estrangeira a medidas assecuratórias ou de perdimento de bens advindos da prática desses crimes financeiros. Por meio dos mecanismos de recuperação de ativos, conseguimos dar eficácia e concluir todos os esforços para a aplicação da lei nessa temática.
Thus, assets recovery might be understood as the intersection between the combat against financial crimes and international legal cooperation. It is truly remarkable that we can, in a foreign jurisdiction, bring into effect provisional measures or asset forfeitures arising from the practice of financial crimes. Through asset recovery mechanisms, it is possible to ensure effectiveness and bring all efforts toward law enforcement in this matter to a conclusion.
Portanto, circunstâncias como a de hoje nos animam e dão esperança para a promoção da justiça, como nesse exemplo concreto de recuperação desse quadro pertencente ao patrimônio brasileiro e ao patrimônio nacional dos brasileiros. Com o esforço e profissionalismo das autoridades competentes, mostra-se como é possível acabar com uma percepção de que crimes do colarinho branco estão imunes a consequências.
Circumstances such as those of today are encouraging and inspire hope in the promotion of justice. With the efforts and professionalism of the authorities who are in charge of this jurisdiction, it is shown how it is possible to bring an end to the perception that white-collar crimes are immune from consequences, thus protecting Brazil's national heritage.
Todos os envolvidos no processo que culminou nessa repatriação merecem as mais altas congratulações. Ao governo dos Estados Unidos da América, tem sido uma constante e um forte parceiro para alcançarmos tais objetivos, especialmente no âmbito da cooperação jurídica internacional. E aqui aproveito a ocasião para agradecer todo o apoio e comunicação permanente da doutora Madalena conosco. Assim, dentre tantos órgãos envolvidos, tenho que profundamente agradecer a cooperação e a presteza do Departamento de Justiça americano, a celeridade e a efetividade do Departamento de Segurança Nacional, bem como o incansável acompanhamento da Procuradoria do Distrito Sul de Nova York.
All of those involved in this process that has led to this repatriation deserve the highest congratulations. The United States of America has been a constant and strong partner in achieving these goals, principally in the area of international legal cooperation. Therefore, over so many parties, I must deeply thank the cooperation and readiness of the American Department of Justice, as well as Dr. Madalena, our consul here, and for the speed and effectiveness of the Homeland Security investigations, and also for the tireless monitoring of the U.S. Attorney's, on the part of the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Southern District of New York.
Também não posso deixar de mencionar o excelente trabalho das autoridades brasileiras, nesse presente caso, destacando a atuação do Ministério Público do Estado de São Paulo, a assertividade do Poder Judiciário brasileiro, em especial a 6ª Vara Criminal e a 2ª Vara de Falências, a administração e o acompanhamento dos bens pelos representantes da massa falida e a coordenação dessa atividade pelo Departamento de Recuperação de Ativos e Cooperação Jurídica Internacional da Secretaria Nacional de Justiça brasileira.
I must not forget to mention the excellent job done by the Brazilian authorities in this case, highlighting the activity of the Public Prosecutor's Office of the State of São Paulo and the involvement of the judicial branch, especially the 6th Federal Criminal Court part and the second part of bankruptcy court, the assets administration, and involvement of the insolvency estate attorneys and the coordination of all this activity by the Department of Assets Recovery and International Legal Cooperation of the National Secretary of Justice.
Finalmente, em nome do Ministério da Justiça do Brasil, mas também de todo o povo brasileiro, é com uma grande alegria que nós recebemos a presente obra de arte referente ao caso Banco Santos. Thank you so much.
Finally, on behalf not only of the Ministry of Justice, but also of all of the people of Brazil, it is with great joy that I receive this present artwork, which has been referenced to the Banco Santos case. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, it's my pleasure to call to the podium Erenides dos Santos, prosecutor, public prosecutor, State of Sao Paulo.
Hi everyone, I try to speak in English, so excuse me for any problems. Mr. Preet Bharara, U.S. Attorney, Mr. James Hayes, IC New York, Mr. Paulo Abrão Pires Júnior, Secretário Nacional de Justiça do Brasil, Senhora Ana Lucy Cabral Petersen, Cônsul-Geral do Brasil, na Embaixada Brasileira em Nova York. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great satisfaction that the prosecutor and the Brazilian judiciary participate in this ceremony to repatriate this work of Sergei Polyakov, seized by U.S. authority in compliance with the request of International Criminal Corporation of the Brazilian judiciary. In Brazil, the cooperation between the federal criminal judge, the bankruptcy judge, the district attorney overseeing the bankruptcy, and the Brazilian DRCA, as well as international legal cooperation provided to the Brazilian government by the U.S. Department of Justice, allowed the compensation of the victims of crime with the arrest of the valuable artwork, reaffirming the legal bond of cooperation between our two nations. Thank you all, and I hope that this work serves as an example for our continuing international partnership. Thank you.
And now, since this is a transfer ceremony, it wouldn't be complete unless some folks sign certain things. So if I could call the relevant people to come sign the certificate of transfer at the table to my right. Thank you. Thank you again, everyone, for coming. I don't know if there are any questions. I think the proceeding was fairly self-explanatory, but if there are, I'm sure people here would be happy to answer your questions. That's what I thought. Thanks, everybody.